Astroworld and we look at today is December 9th. It's been a bit of time since Astroworld has came and gone. Astroworld Festival began on 2 p.m. on November 5th, and it ended at 11 p.m. on November 6th. So, what is that? 33 days. It's been 33 days since Astroworld Festival. And this is the first time that Travis Scott is sitting down and having a conversation. So, whenever I think about it, I just feel like that's a little bit too long, in my opinion. I don't want him to have to wait that long to sit down and have a conversation about this. I feel like he should have been the one that was going and doing a media tour, or he was the one that should have been going and having the conversations with different folks. And unfortunately, that just wasn't happening. And it happened today. And I felt like there were some things that came out during the conversation that were important, sorts of points of conversation for us to be able to dive into. And I know there are people out there who don't want us talking about this conversation or this topic. And the more that I think about it, it's like, should we or shouldn't we talk about it? Why or why not? And as I think about it, there's coming a time where there's this intersection of what's happening in pop culture and what's happening in spirituality and faith-based, and those two things have to collide and connect. And if the people who have a perspective like I have, or like many of you in the chat have, refrain from using our voices for something that we believe to be positive, then what we're doing is we're allowing them to run with the narrative. And so as I got to thinking about it, I'm like, no, Christians need to speak out against this. And we need to spend more time talking about it, because we allow the most absurd, obscene things enter into pop culture, and people sit by and celebrate them. And then we're sort of on the sidelines and we're like, nah, hey, I just don't want to be involved in it. And we keep our mouths shut. And what I've learned is there's about 5% of people at the very end of one spectrum, and about 15% of people on the other end of another spectrum that are really loud with their voices. And there's a ton of people in the middle, 80 to 90% of people in the middle, and they keep their mouths completely shut. And when we're keeping our mouths completely shut and not talking about it, what we're doing is we're avoiding the conversation, and there's nothing positive that comes from it, because the people who are on the ends of the spectrum, their voice being really loud ends up being the voices that people run with. And so I think it's so important for us to sit down, have a conversation, and say, well, how does our spiritual life, how does our faith connect to this particular issue? And then how can we sort of let other people know that there's another perspective? And the time has come right now for us as believers. The time has come right now for us as a community here on the Feller Fam or on my channel to really step up and say there's a lot about this that our culture needs to stop celebrating. And so I listened to the entire interview, and there's a lot of it that it feels a little bit rehearsed, sort of like we're talking about with the Alec Baldwin thing. And there's a lot of it that at the end of the day, I just outright disagreed with. And in particular, and I hope I don't, wouldn't that be bad if I got in trouble again on YouTube tonight? I pray that I don't get taken off of YouTube as I did last night, because I'm going to play part of this interview. But in this interview, Travis Scott says that he's a man of God. First off, he says, I'm a man of God. Does a man of God create music that sounds the way that his music sounds? And I'm not talking about stylistically, I'm talking about lyrically and the way that it evokes emotions out of people. Let's take a listen to part of this interview.
Some people say your music played a role in this. Like I've seen them, cite lyrics, that encourage this kind of behavior. I've seen them say your music is demonic and this was a satanic ritual. You think your music is to blame?
I mean, no. One, I'm a man of God, so that's the first thing first, and so it's just, yeah, that's that. And you know, your music is just like self-expression. You know what I'm saying? At these shows, I feel like people kind of like look at things, and if you've been to a Travis show, it's been different layers of shows. You know, I think people are just misconceptions and taking things they're seeing, and all type of things. And I've took pride in trying to grow from where I was when I first recorded music to.
Do you guys think he's a man of God? Is that how you would describe Travis Scott, as a man of God? I put the new question in the poll. Do you think Travis Scott is a man of God?
Now where I'm going in music. So yeah, I just think people gotta, and that's one thing with me is just people gotta kind of, experience it sometimes, and I think that's what it was. People were kind of like, even before, people were hearing about it, they come and experience it, and taking away their own thing. And it's always going to be an outside opinion, but for the ones that really believe in me and understand what what I'm about and what I'm doing, no, that's not what I'm preaching. I always preach like love, always preach understanding, always preach, take care of your loved ones, love each other. You know what I'm saying? Get out your ideas. Never let yourselves be stopped. Love one another and step into that.
I mean, I think that's a part of it, but the music does encourage people to be violent at these shows.
I mean,
that's what the rage is about.
I mean, most of the music is me sometimes talking about what I see at the shows.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? If I'm talking about the shows, and so that's just the energy. You know what I'm saying? But the energy isn't to come and start, being ultra violent and just being violent.
Happy Caffeinated Couple says, my friend has a YouTube channel, and after 3 copyright strikes, he can no longer be monetized. So our dear friend, we just want you to be careful. Thank you, Happy Caffeinated Couple, for that. I don't think they gave me a copyright strike last night. I don't know. I need to check into it, but I'll check into it. I don't think I have any copyright strikes because I wasn't claiming that it was my content. And I think that's whenever they get in trouble. And I don't know. I'll go double check. Thank you for that super chat though. Evelyn says, not our God. That's my point. If he says he's a man of God, it's not the same God. It's definitely not the same God that I serve or that you serve, for sure, without a shadow of a doubt. Martha says this, is he a man of God or a man of God? Man of God, capital G, or a man of God, small g? Who and what does he worship? Interesting. That's my point. And I have some evidence and some things I want to point to in a second, Martha, that I think may help answer that question. Who and what does this guy worship? Who and what does he worship? Not the same God that I worship. Not the same God that we approach with fear and trembling. Not that God. Grandma Patty says, maybe a man of the God. I hear they are friends. What's interesting, Grandma Patty, and I didn't think about that, the person interviewing him is named Charlemagne the God and calls himself Charlemagne the God. And so, yeah, so maybe man of the God, the guy interviewing him, I hear they're friends, but not our God. Carol says violence is not godly. I agree with that, Carol. Violence is definitely not godly. For sure. Thank you for the super chat, by the way. Thank you, Martha, for the super chat. Thank you, Grandma Patty, for the super chat. Thank you, Carol, for the super chat. Thank you, Happy Caffeinated Couple, for the super chat. Thank you, Evelyn, for the super chat. Avery says this, frankly, I just wonder what his drug of choice was for this interview. Should be a requirement, right? If you're in a sticky situation like this with $2 billion worth of lawsuits against you. Let's drug test you. Are you a man of God? Let's drug test you. How many men of God do you know that tell people using explicit language to take their middle fingers and point them up towards the sky? How many men of God do you know do that? That's not a man of God. And we're not supposed to judge. I know people are going to go crazy on the replay of this in the comment section saying, you're a man, you're not supposed to judge. No, maybe we're not supposed to judge, and I'm not judging. We can inspect fruit. And the fruit of the Holy Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And so if you're not exhibiting that fruit and you calling yourself a man of God, then I do have a responsibility as a believer to say, well, your fruit certainly doesn't line up with it, because the fruit of the Holy Spirit doesn't allow you to instruct 50,000 people to put their middle fingers up in the air. Who are they flipping off? You tell me that. When he's using foul language and telling people to put their middle finger up in the air, who is he telling them to flip off? You answer me that. Happy Caffeinated Couple says this: his words sound good here, but the actions and messages before and during concerts don't line up. Yeah. Thank you for the super chat, and I agree. This is rehearsed. He sat down. He wanted to have some conversations about this in a way that would win over public opinion, so he can continue having concerts and whatever. Renee in North Carolina says nothing he does or promotes is godly. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Renee, for that. I'm going to keep playing part of this interview because he gets asked a direct question about that particular topic in just a second.
And hurting each other, that's not what it's about.
So it's more so supposed to be entertainment.
Yeah, it's everything is, and it's about what you experience at the shows and what you see,
Will this change the content of your music moving forward, you think?
What happened here wasn't off Travis Scott music. That wasn't, oh, now you need to like switch up. No, I mean, I've made.
Do you think what happened there was because of Travis Scott music? I mean, that was his stance. Like, hey, the reason that this happened wasn't because of Travis Scott music. Do you think it was, or do you think it had nothing to do with his music?
Made all different type of music in the first place, I never was just like one lane or one genre of anything in the first place. So I just think it's all about experiences, and I feel like, it could be music to come out of it. Lyricism, just emotion. Music is emotion. And music is healing. And you can just find healing and find emotion, and in that, and just more progressive. Everything I'm trying to do is just more progressive.
You said you're a man of God, and when I even said that, they say your music is satanic, I saw the face that you made.
Yeah, this is where he goes a little bit deeper in on that.
Where do you think that even comes from? Travis Scott is satanic. Travis Scott is demonic.
I just think it's just things people collect, people go to the internet and they just collect and they look at things and they look at visuals, and you have all these theorists and people just thinking they're looking at visuals and don't understand, just the idea of like what art may be or what you're trying to do. They're just making up your own message, especially when you're not out there like yelling the message all the time. It's just, yeah.
And when they said this is a community event, Astroworld.
It's absolutely ridiculous that we live in a society where we promote this guy, and then in sort of the cleanup interviews, he says he's a man of God. And if other believers and Christians don't speak out against this, that is, incredibly heartbreaking. We have an opportunity to stand up for the future of, and it's not about him. at all. It's not about him. It's about, realistically, it's about us having a conversation culturally about what we want our kids to experience in the future. Like, what do we want to be promoted in the main lines of the future? And I can tell you one thing, it's not this guy masquerading himself as a man of God. Sin70 says, did you read the whole detailed timeline on Facebook? Yeah, I not on Facebook, but I did read that. Thank you, Sin70, for the super chat. The thing that I felt like was most interesting about sort of the timeline that was involved in that was most of the people that passed away were in the same section of the event venue. And so it happened in sort of one section. Elizabeth, thank you so much for your super chat, your super sticker tonight. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for your support always, Elizabeth. You're always so supportive. Now, I want to play just the beginning of another video for you, and I'm going to go back to that interview in just a second. But in this next interview, this guy here, Isaiah Saldivar, he's a Christian, and he shares for just a couple of seconds what the beginning of the concert was like from a Christian's perspective. Like, what are you seeing visually as you came into this concert?
They had going, and there was a portal, and literally, like, it looked like hell on stage. People said they felt demons coming into them. People couldn't breathe. 8 people died that night. 2 more have died since then. Over 300 people hospitalized. Like, his shirt literally had people going from death to going into hell. The stage was set up as a portal. It had like a phoenix on fire. All this demonic symbolism as dead bodies were being literally crowd surfed out of the crowd. He was singing songs over them, saying, yeah. He was saying, like, you guys know what you came for. As people were dying on stage, it was flashing, see you on the other side. So it was blatantly demonic. It wasn't like hidden. It wasn't like conspiracy. It was blatantly demonic. Talk to me about this. Was this a human ritual? Was this a human sacrifice ceremony? How does music play into that witchcraft world, that satanic realm? To your knowledge, coming out of that, what like role does music and stuff play into that?
Well, you got to know when we go to church.
Okay, so did you guys pay attention to what he was saying? It's a portal. It's clearly people, one person to another. It's imagery of crossing over. He's making the point that from a Christian's perspective, there was nothing godly about this.
There's 2 arguments.
It definitely would have felt like something that was demonic. What do you think? There's parallels between Dante's Inferno and Travis Scott concert. There's pictures and imagery on t-shirt that were merch of people walking literally from this earth into hell. That's not a godly man having a godly concert. There's nothing godly about that. It's so unfortunate. And people are going to walk away believing that. Here's another video of Isaiah Saldivar talking a bit about this.
Here, 2 thoughts. The first thought is, did Travis Scott really know what he was doing? And did he know that this was going to be? Because in my opinion, it was a satanic sacrifice, human sacrifice ritual. That's my opinion.
I will say that what he's going to say from even a Christian perspective can be somewhat polarizing, and there's going to be many of you I know that are going to disagree with what he's saying, and I don't know if I agree with what he's saying even, but it's just a different perspective about what happened. Okay, and I want to at least consider it. Okay,
or did he just do this and this happened? Well, let me just say this. One thing that blew my mind, and I did hours of reading, Jenny, reading articles. I read all the news things. I watched all the videos, which I plan to show some of the videos, and I'm not going to because I had a feeling we were going to have this many people on here, and I thought, I know a lot of these people have kids that are watching, so I will not show any footage. I also don't want to get flagged and taken down while we're live, and it's just purely too graphic to show. You guys, a lot of you have seen it. I wouldn't go watch it because it is graphic, the videos of the concert, but I will say this. Here's what I kept seeing, Jenny, and I get chills every time I say this. Everybody there, these were not Christians, by the way, writing these articles and putting these TikTok stories out. And I watched hours of people interview. People were saying there was a certain point in the concert, about, I don't know, it was like 5 to 10 minutes in, where that portal, which the stage was a big portal, when that portal lit up and Travis came out, where all of a sudden it went from calm, everybody was at the festival, to all out. Not only did they say it felt darker, they couldn't breathe. Through over 300 people were hospitalized. People by the hundreds were going into cardiac arrest. And secular people, these are not believers, said they felt spirits coming into them. They felt massive amounts of spirits coming into them. And as Travis was singing, they felt a presence coming into the room. And all of a sudden at once, hundreds of people stopped breathing. People started going into panic. People started having, I wouldn't say visions, but having like, what are they called? You know, where you're on like a drug trip, or you're having, what is it called? Where you hallucinations. People were hallucinating, seeing things, and people were literally saying they felt demons coming into them. There's 50,000 people at the concert. And so while they said in a certain part of the show, it all was at one time. So it wasn't like throughout the show. It was one moment where he started singing the song and there was like a bass vibration or a bass. It was like a loud, just a bass, like playing like murr, all the subs were going off, where these demons were coming into people. And I honestly believe, and I know this is graphic, I really believe that this was a banquet for demons. I believe the 50,000 people there were being feasted on by demonic spirits, and this was an all-out playground for demonic spirits. Now, the crazy part was, we're not some conspiracy people, me or you, Jenny. We don't get into conspiracy videos. We don't even make videos on conspiracies. This is not a conspiracy, y'all. 8 people died from this concert, and this is what saddens me, their last moments. I mean, you think about, there was a 14-year-old, a 16-year-old, a 17-year-old, a 20-year-old, and their last moments were this demonic ritual concert. There was one video that was extremely graphic where he was on a platform and there was a dead body being surfed through the crowd because they were trying to get the body out, and the body was dead. The body was confirmed dead later. And he was looking at the body, y'all. Listen to what I'm going to say here. Looking at the dead body, and I won't sing the way he was singing it, but he basically was saying, yeah, like along however you would carry out a note, saying, yeah, staring at the dead body as it was gone, like completely. And this is the world saying this, not even Christians. They said he looked completely demonized. He looked completely like he was in a trance, and he was having everybody, he said, everyone put your hands up, everybody put your hands up, and everyone shout rage. And he was shouting rage, rage, rage over and over, which if anyone knows about Satanism or the Satanic Kingdom, repeating yourself, that's like seances. You repeat over and over, you invoke those demons by saying those things. And this is 50,000 young people. I would say 95% of them having no clue what's going on. And again, I have never watched a video, Jenny, that I could say is as close as you can get to hell. And there was actually a video, I know, again, this is graphic, and there's almost 10,000 people watching, where they were taking videos of them being trampled. So they were under a pile of bodies and they were screaming bloody murder, taking videos and calling the cops. And these are just piles of young people screaming for their lives. Some of them didn't make it out. And I was just thinking, and the concert's going on, and this is happening in America.
I'm at a loss of words, really. I'm at a loss of words. Exactly. This is happening in America. We're allowing this to happen. We celebrate this guy. We let him have a meal at McDonald's. We put him, on a cereal box. Trish says, are concerts rated like movies? If not, shouldn't they be? Children are not allowed in these concerts. Well, the thing about movies, Trish, thank you, by the way, for that super chat. The thing about movies is a parent can go with you to a movie. And in the case of especially the 9-year-old that passed away, but a lot of times the kids that were going, their parents were taking them. Hey, JP, how are you? I can't hear you. Are you muted? I don't know why when people call in, they get off. Does that make any sense to you? People call in and then get off. Tim says, Isaiah makes a really great point. 95% of the people here didn't even realize what was happening. I don't think they understood it. And the sad part is they don't know what doors they are opening. Exactly my point. People have no idea sometimes what doors they are opening. And we got to be really careful about that. We got to be really careful about what you allow into your mind and into your heart. Let me just tell you this right now. What you put in your eyes and ears, it rests in your heart. And what's in your heart comes out.